Welcome everyone to the latest edition of StateScoop's Government Technology Webinar Series, brought to you today by Cisco and Red Hat. I'm your host, Wyatt Kash, for StateScoop and StateScoop as well. And today we look at the topic of the advantages of migrating to the cloud using OpenStack. Joining us today are three veteran experts on the matter. First, we'll be welcoming Bohn, Cloud Computing Program Manager at the National Institute of Science and Technology. Bob, welcome to the program.
Thank you, and thank you, Wyatt.
Also joining us today is Kevin Sherry, Senior Director at Red Hat Consulting for the public sector. Kevin, we're glad that you could join us today. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
And last but not least, we've got Tim Silk, Senior Manager for Systems Engineering at Cisco Systems. Tim, thank you for joining the program today.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Great. So I also, of course, want to welcome our audience, including those tuning in to the Archive on Demand issue. Before we begin, just a quick tip for our audience to get familiar with our console and how they can participate in today's program. On your viewing console, there are a couple of widgets that you can use, including a Q&A chat window. And we invite our listeners to the live webcast to use the Q&A chat box to submit your questions to our presenters today anytime throughout the webcast. And we'll try to answer as many of those as we can by the end of the program. You can also download a copy of today's slide deck by clicking the File in the Resource List widget. If you don't see it on your screen, look for it in the folder icon at the bottom of your window, of your screen rather. And you can also make the slide presentation window larger on your screen by dragging the bottom right corner of the slide area. If you have any technical difficulties, there's also a help button there. Finally, there will be an on-demand version of this webcast, which we'll record today, and it'll be posted on StateScoop and available for the next 90 days. So if you have any colleagues who might benefit from our content today, just send along the link that you used to join the presentation today. And with that, I'd like to get started. We're going to start by looking at some research that StateScoop and StateScoop recently conducted, looking at the use of cloud computing and also perceptions about OpenStack. And the study that we're about to present basically was conducted online in the last 6 weeks or so. The audience is a group of government IT professionals that are involved in managing or brokering cloud services. And the group breaks down to about 77% being involved in government agencies, about half federal, about 14% state, and about 17% who are government contractors working for agencies directly. But we also had about 23% working for industry firms that are involved in the government community. And that's who will be represented by the results today. So let's get started with the study. We found some interesting things. Number one, cloud adoption has continued to grow. About 3 in 4 of government respondents in our survey use one or more scalable and on-demand cloud services as part of their IT operations. And 2 in 3 of those that are not using cloud services say that their agencies plan to in the next 12 to 24 months. So very clearly, we've come a long way since the Cloud First initiative launched by then Cloud CIO for the federal government, Vivek Kundra, with most agencies seeing the benefits of using the cloud. We also tried to get a gauge for where they're using the cloud and found that 6 in 10 are taking a hybrid approach, that is off-site as well as partially on-site. 3 in 10 rely on third-party providers directly. 1 in 10 still are staying solely on premises, and I think that reflects some of the government agencies and the federal government that need to really keep a close hand on their data. But by and large, we've seen a shift towards more and more of a hybrid approach, and that means having the right software to use their applications and keep their data in multiple locations. Another thing we found, the top 7 uses of the cloud illustrated something I think kind of interesting. We found, for example, that the computing was the #1 type of use for cloud services, followed by email. So we've matured since the days when we just put email in the cloud. Storage came in fairly close behind that, and application development was also fairly high on the list. 50% of our respondents said they're now doing application development in the cloud. And though a smaller group answered using the cloud for backup, I think it's a significant shift that backup and continuity of operations where agencies used to keep dual locations and a complicated process of backing up their data, that the cloud is now giving them new options to do that. We also kind of tried to explore the issue of agility, and in this regard we used the Gartner standard definition of deciding or looking at organizations that take a more linear approach to application and software development or a more agile sort of frequent iteration approach. And though we know that agencies are still fairly getting started up that curve, we found some encouraging results here. #1, that about 20% of the agencies are actively using an agile approach. About 10% are undertaking a project. And all in all, 7 in 10 government respondents are either using, planning, or considering adopting agile delivery as an approach. And the cloud obviously makes that easier to do. About 28% say they're not yet, but we think it's just a matter of time before they get there for a variety of reasons. Next, we wanted to look at their perceptions about open source and open source technologies, and in particular technologies like OpenStack, which is obviously creating an ability for users to use a essentially free open source software platform to manage hardware, storage, etc. And we found that the acceptance level is growing rather solidly. 1 in 4 government respondents said they're now using open source technology like OpenStack for on-premise cloud services. And the folks in industry are a little further along. 1 in 3 said they do so. We also explored a variety of perceptions. What did they think about OpenStack at the moment? And found some interesting numbers here. First, in terms of the time to deploy, we found 8 in 10 government respondents believe that OpenStack is as fast or faster to deploy than proprietary cloud software. And you'll see on the chart here, and you can download later, we also sort of broke those out by government respondents and industry respondents for comparison, so you can take a closer look when you have more time. But just to keep us on track, we also wanted to determine their sense of the security of OpenStack. And so we found 3 in 4 government respondents believe OpenStack is as secure or more secure than proprietary software. We also found, for example, that 7 in 10 government respondents believe OpenStack is as resilient or more resilient than proprietary cloud software when it comes to handling operating faults or certain circumstances in their operations. So the resilience was also seen as fairly capable there for OpenStack. Relative to expense, probably no surprise here. 9 in 10 government respondents believe OpenStack is no more expensive, and half believe it is less expensive to deploy than proprietary cloud software. So clearly they see an expense advantage, as it were. We also realized, though, that there's some concerns about doing migrations and wanted to know how they felt about the difficulty of executing that. And 8 in 10 felt pretty comfortable. They felt it was the government respondents, they felt that it was as easy or easier to execute than proprietary software. And in terms of overall cost control, sort of from beginning to end of projects, about 5 in 10, about half of government respondents believe that OpenStack makes the overall development cost easier to control over the life cycle of a project. About a third, a little more than that, weren't sure, and that probably reflects the fact that they're still getting up to speed with just what's involved. We also we know risk, and the risk of failure is, government agencies in particular are a bit risk averse. We found that 9 in 10 government respondents believe that OpenStack poses no greater certainly less risk of failure than proprietary cloud software. So we don't see that as being a major stumbling block for the government market. And then lastly, we found that 4 in 10 government respondents believe OpenStack is becoming more widely adopted by enterprises, and that generally, I think they're reading, but we've seen in a lot of market research in general is that on a global basis, OpenStack is really becoming a well-established platform to consider for cloud operations. So what's keeping people from moving forward faster? And we identified probably these 6 main obstacles to adoption. The most cited reasons from our government audience began with a lack of staff to execute it. 62% told us that was a problem, followed pretty much by a similar proportion who said they lack the internal skills to do this. Then concerns about the doubt that benefits will outweigh the costs are still a factor by about 38%, and there was still about 36% that said, you know, we're not really sure if this really meets our requirements yet. But a lack of budget resources, though not insignificant, was still a small proportion of the obstacles, and a lack of senior support was mentioned by about 28%. So clearly there's a maturity curve that varies agency to agencies, but overall one of the biggest stumbling blocks we're seeing is just, do we have the people who know how to do this for us on hand to get us started? And then lastly, we just kind of had a couple of conclusions and recommendations. I think overall, cloud services certainly are now widely used for many types of computing work in government IT, both on premises and increasingly in a hybrid environment. We found that OpenStack technology is perceived to be equal to or better than proprietary cloud software in terms of cost and resilience and security and deployment. Speed by a majority of the IT leaders that we polled. And about 1/3 of respondents say that their shops are already using or testing OpenStack, about a quarter in the case of government-only agencies. And then lastly, that a lack of skills and staff are probably seen as the top obstacles right now to embracing OpenStack more widely. So some of the recommendations from our experts, and we're going to hear more on this program from them. One is it seems that we need a little greater education and use cases to help demonstrate just where those costs and benefits of migrating to OpenStack technology really apply. Also, we need to see more support for increased training of specialists to aid in OpenStack migration. And then I think strengthening OpenStack capabilities to function between and across cloud platforms is still an issue. It's one thing to stand up a cloud with OpenStack. It's another thing to make sure that data and applications can move back and forth across multiple cloud services. So with that, that's our presentation of the research. Again, the study is being available on this slide deck and is being officially released tomorrow, June 2nd, and we'll have more articles about that. But for now, I want to hear from someone in the government marketplace that we've come to respect for a long time on the evolution of cloud and also familiar with the OpenStack development, and that's Bohn, who's with the Advanced Network Technologies Division at NIST. So Bob, do me a favor and let me turn it over to you. Tell us a little bit about kind of what you're seeing in the general broader landscape of cloud and with OpenStack applications in the federal marketplace.
Okay, well, thank you, Wyatt, and thank you for your inviting me to speak today. What I would like to speak today on OpenStack at NIST, I'd like to draw down into 3 basic categories. One, the work that we've done in our NIST Cloud Computing program, and also 2 of the use cases from colleagues at NIST who have been kind enough to describe and give me some slides that I could present here today to you. So with that, I will begin. Back in the day of early days of cloud, Wyatt alluded to this earlier in his talk, where he spoke about Vivek Kundra's publications. The first one there that you see on the left was published in the latter part of 2010. That's the 25-point implementation plan for reforming federal information technology, and the one next to it, the Federal Cloud Computing Strategy, also known as the Cloud First document, that came out in February 2011. In that document, it sets out a framework for how to decide to move to the cloud. So the first part is how are you going to select the services? How are you going to provision them effectively with respect to your IT portfolio that you currently have? And then how are you going to manage services rather than assets? So this is a real change of mindset from individuals who are accustomed to buying big iron and storing it down in the basement to now they have to deliver services. In the document, 3 agencies were called out to assist the federal government in this adventure. And I call it an adventure because this is one of the rare cases where the government, who is typically conservative when it comes to technology, decided to try to embrace the cloud right from the very beginning and get in on the ground floor so they could have some influence and see how it is working. Without further ado, NIST was called out to produce a roadmap on the requirements for cloud computing adoption and also to look at the standards and technology used in cloud. GSA was used to look at procurement issues, while DHS was assigned chores in operational security. My next slide shows part of how we built a roadmap. The only thing that we had in our possession when we started this process was the NIST definition of cloud computing from Tim Grants and Peter Mell. So what we did, we decided that we wanted to develop a reference architecture, but do one that did not, which was vendor neutral and did not include any technology. Okay, and the reason we did that was that we weren't going to prescribe any solutions, technology solutions for the vendors, and it leaves it open for a wide range of innovation here. In addition, you see that the reference architecture is all surrounded around actors and roles, where we have a cloud provider, consumer, auditor, broker, and carrier. One of the additional reasons for doing it in that way, that it makes it very easy to work this into contract language, because now we're talking about a specific individual and we know what his roles and responsibilities are. That was published in this document that's next to it, NIST SP 500-292, which contains the cloud computing reference architecture. Here is a little bit of a picture of it then. In more detail, you could see the activities, what a cloud provider really has. He deals with the service layers on top of a resource abstraction and control layer, and finally on top of a hardware facility in the physical resource layer. He has a cloud service management where he handles all this activity for the cloud, and then here are some of the other activities. Here we see some of the other actors, consumer, auditor, broker. At the bottom, you see all of this is laying on top of a plane called security and privacy, because in the cloud world, everybody has a role in security and privacy. I was taking a look at the typical OpenStack picture and asking myself, how does this exactly map back to this reference architecture? So the first step I have here, I have the standard hardware from the OpenStack in green, and then that maps nicely to the physical resource layer that I have in the reference architecture. The OpenStack shared services also maps well to the top layers, service and resource abstraction control layers. Finally, we have, and then of course a little bit more specifically for infrastructure as a service. What we have here, we have the we have the management interface, which goes along with all of the activities for the cloud service management. So this is how we see OpenStack fitting, or at least mapping to our reference architecture. The next slide here is some work from our mobile cloud computing group in the emerging technologies group, and this is done by Dr. Sharif Mumadid. There are contacts at the end of this presentation. What it shows is how we can enable the mobile cloud, but we break it down from a very large cloud data center and down to smaller cloudlets, which are OpenStack based, down to your associated mobile devices. So this is some ways how the cloud, how mobile users can leverage the cloud. Next, we're also involved with cloud measurement and to drive cloud interoperability standards by modeling and building a definition for metrics. OpenStack is used in our lab here because it's a good open source implementation, and several providers act as contributors to this project as well. Here's one example that we do on high throughput networking, and the goal here is to improve packet processing performance by factors of 10. We do this by using the DPDK Framework, which is the Data Plane Development Kit. This is a set of libraries and drivers for fast packet processing. It also enables kernel bypass technologies. This can, Neutron is also accelerated by DPDK, so you could see that we could have much faster memory transfer by using this OpenStack core project. The next bit I'd like to talk about is some work done at the National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence, which is associated with NIST. It's also part of a larger organization, which also includes people from industry to work on interesting problems of cybersecurity. This one is actually a very interesting one on trusted geolocation in the cloud. This is done by Michael Bartek and Maraja Supia in our computer security division, and here are the other contributors from Intel and HITRUST, and Karen Scarfone from cybersecurity. So you can look for this online, NIST IR 7904. The first part that we're actually looking at, the use case here, it's important to note that this proof of concept implementation presented here, it's only one possible way to solve these security challenges, and it's not intended to preclude the use of other products or services that can also solve the problem adequately. So I just wanted to state that before I continue. This image shows that there are still, the report provides a proof of concept that was designed by NIST to address challenges with infrastructure as a service and geolocation. So we want to be sure that if we're running something on the cloud, that we can trust where it's actually being run. With cloud, there is, a lot of people say cloud works best without borders. However, there are laws and regulations that different countries have in place which mandate that their data has to be held in certain places. And so this project actually starts looking in on how we can actually do this. So I'll go to the next slide here. So I'd like to say that, challenges still exist in this environment of multi-tenancy and shared host infrastructure because of that lack of physical boundaries and visibility of workloads. Another concern is, again, that geolocation. So there could be issues with the integrity of the hosted virtualized compute environment that you're not aware of. And so a security requirement for this kind of system includes something which is a trusted resource pool based on hardware-based secure technical measurement capability. One would need a platform attestation and a safer hypervisor launch, and a trust-based secure migration. So this problem was broken down into 3 steps, each that build up on each other. For the first step, this ensures that the cloud workloads are run on trusted server platforms. The way that this is done is to configure a cloud service platform as being trusted, which includes hardware configuration and hypervisor configuration as well. Before each launch, one would have to verify or measure the trustworthiness of the cloud server platform, and during the hypervisor execution, periodically audit the trustworthiness of the cloud server platform as well. Once that's solved, you can go to the next the next step and build up for trust-based homogeneous secure migration. That's performed by providing configuration management and policy enforcement mechanisms for trusted platforms that include the enforcement of the geolocation restrictions, and then migrate the workloads on trusted platforms to the cloud service, and prohibit migration of workloads between trusted and untrusted servers. Again, this helps the geolocation aspect. Finally, the last step is to do a full-blown test case on trust-based and geolocation-based homogeneous secure migration. The stage allows cloud workloads to be migrated among homogeneous trusted server platforms within the cloud and taking into consideration the geolocation restrictions. Auditing plays a principal role in getting a lot of this done. Here is a picture of a high-level architecture. But what we can see is this follows the recommendations proposed in another NIST document, SP 800-125, and it's composed of 3 distinct networks to isolate the traffic flowing through the management of VMs, storage devices, and public VMs. The management workstation on the right-hand side in the middle is connected to the management network and includes 4 management servers. A dedicated server is used to host management VMs for the other servers, and the cloud orchestration server manages the remaining 3 servers, which are part of the cluster hosting the public VMs. The measurement server takes the measurements of the trusted cloud cluster and directs them to the cloud orchestration server. The audit and reporting server communicates with the cloud orchestration server to obtain the measurement values to reflect in the dashboard window. The storage network provides shared storage where the public VMs are hosted. The 3 public VM servers are connected to the storage network, which uses a non-routable network. Finally, the public VM network is accessible to the workload owners from the Internet. In the demonstration, a single server represents a typical public workload VM controlled by the customers over the Internet. A dedicated network card on each of the trusted server nodes is used to carry the VM traffic. Here's a little bit how OpenStack is actually built into this diagram. So here they start with Dell servers, and that uses Intel TXT for part of the geolocation signature. Next, we have Ubuntu, which is running. The OpenStack Nova uses Icehouse and the Intel Text APIs. And then finally, most of the OpenStack work is done right up here as you see. And so that is the OpenStack implementation at NIST for this group. Here are the contacts at NIST if you have any questions. So there's the three of us at the top in the NIST Cloud Computing Project program, Dr. Sharif Muhammadin for the mobile cloud OpenStack, and then finally Michael and Maroja for the geolocation work. And thank you, Wyatt.
No, Bob, thank you. Really appreciate the specificity on what sounds like a very solid roadmap for implementing OpenStack, and look forward to exploring this a little further. But next, I'd like to just bring in a couple of our subject matter experts and get some reactions here to what they're seeing in the market. Again, I'd like to reintroduce Kevin Sherry, Senior Director at Red Hat Consulting for Public Sector, and Kevin's responsible for driving innovative open source programs for the federal and state, local, and education government markets. And he manages the teams that are responsible for the design and development and implementation of enterprise open source solutions. And and also want to bring in Tim Silk, and again by reintroduction, Tim leads Cisco's technology. He's a technology specialist, a leader for the teams that help develop cloud, data center, collaboration, enterprise networking for the federal market. So I'd like to open with a question to Kevin first. It was interesting, one of the underlying issues in the study it had to do with the merits of bringing cloud computing on premises versus combining cloud in a hybrid model, presumably with government certified cloud facilities. And kind of bringing them together with data centers that agencies manage. And so I'm just kind of curious, in one of our slides, which had to do with the results of the kind of spectrum of how people are using it, what was your take, or what is your take on the use of hybrid versus on-premises only? And is that something that you see changing? And overall, what's your reaction to that?
Sure. Thank you, Wyatt. Yeah, the overall market trends that we've seen from Red Hat's perspective has really been around driving to a much more open standards, open hybrid approach to cloud computing, whereas you're trying to maximize use of all resources across both your hard on-prem as well as off-prem, potentially through third-party cloud providers. And the reality is the drivers of those are really coming from our customers' confidence in the availability of those services and their performance to be able to meet their security needs. And as a result of that, what you're seeing is a lot more hybrid architectures that are driving a lot of elasticity and scale for the workloads. When we start talking a lot about really complex workloads, we start talking about how do we actually make them portable. And by having a very strong hybrid cloud approach, it actually allows you to increase portability between on-prem and off-prem cloud providers. It allows us to really get an infrastructure modernization in place that really allows them to reap the benefits of both scale out and scale up type architectures. So as Red Hat's kind of, bread and butter in the open hybrid market, bringing our OpenStack community together with our CloudForms communities and our ability to actually get the management as well as also the technical infrastructure pieces in play, we're seeing a lot more use cases where folks are working with other third-party, both proprietary and open source providers, Cisco, et cetera, where you're seeing them pull in other, compute, storage, and networking resources in a much more cohesive manner than we have in the past. It's not a build once and hope that everything works well. It's really about a scalable model that allows you to kind of run up and down on different types of components within the architecture.
Appreciate that. And Tim, I'd be interested in your thoughts on that from your perspective.
Absolutely. Thank you, Wyatt. Absolutely, absolutely. Agencies are carefully considering doing both as far as on-prem versus off-prem hybrid cloud solutions. And what this really goes back to is having predictable, simple, fast IT, and those are the services that they have to deliver to their users as well as their developers who are doing the work on the back end. Now, at the same time, the administration of the systems in the hybrid cloud, you still have to have that control and that leverage of orchestration and automation, as well as it has to be reliable and it has to be visible. And it has to be visible in terms of providing that security, but also the service level agreements and being able to deliver the services at an acceptable level. And also, I think we're going to start to see a lot more agencies looking at, in terms of visibility, being able to do more analytics with what they have and what they can see on their infrastructures. So the benefits that public cloud provides today are absolutely available with on-prem, and technologies like OpenStack are making that possible.
And Bob, I'd be just curious, is NIST making any distinction in its recommendations between on-premises versus hybrid cloud operations?
Excuse me, Wyatt. Can you repeat that question?
Of course. I was saying, does NIST have any particular or specific recommendations between using on-premises versus hybrid cloud setups?
Oh, there's not any particular recommendations which are made, Wyatt. The main thing that we try to keep in mind is security risk posture, right? So we want to make sure that whoever the consumer is, their security risk posture is manageable. So.
Great.
I mean, there's not any recommendation to go hybrid versus private versus public.
Okay, I appreciate that. Let me shift gears a little to the findings relative to OpenStack, and in this regard, we found that there was, I thought pretty significant embracement so far in government. And Kevin, I'll swing it back to you. What was your reaction about the degree of respondents saying that they are currently using open source technology like OpenStack?
It's directly in line with what we're seeing in the market today, and I feel that the conversation around open source adoption isn't necessarily about the what anymore. It's really about the how. No one's really questioning the value prop in the open source and open standards. So when we started putting together our OpenStack offerings, it is a co-engineered offering between Red Hat and many other parties. This is a project out in the marketplace. We saw that the actual adoption was quite interesting. It really kind of paced with the project itself. As we sat back, we certify and standardize on our Red Hat distribution of OpenStack. We really saw that the early adopters were looking for really a lot of compute power, and those were the use cases they were driving for with OpenStack. And I believe there was another piece of your study that also showed that compute was really #1 ranked. We have seen a lot of OpenStack being used in the IaaS layer for compute-type resources. Now, as we evolve with the program itself, the overall projects from OpenStack, you're seeing a lot more interest in the other ancillary projects that compose OpenStack as a whole. So we're seeing a lot more interest in software-defined networking and in a lot of the other kind of components that integrate and also are a core part of OpenStack. So we'll continue to see the adoption increase. We'll continue to see the overall project depth increase as well as far as capabilities are concerned. But it's directly in line with what we're seeing from our customers. And ultimately, they're looking for the most robust, scalable cloud architecture they can get to. And we firmly believe that OpenStack, combined with a very strong cloud management and security profile, will really get you there. And our customers are absolutely speaking the same.
That makes sense. Tim, I'm kind of curious, as we found that the industry respondents in our survey were a little further along, and I understand Cisco internally has adopted open source in its operations. Tell us a little bit about your experience about what that's been like and what lessons maybe you might share with our audience.
Absolutely. Thank you, Wyatt. And I'll go back to the survey results for just a second here. 6 out of 10 of the respondents said that a hybrid cloud approach to those services is the approach that they're taking. And I think, as Kevin said, that's what we're seeing in the market across the board. And the vendor community is responding to that. And I think that's clearly an indication. And Cisco, in particular, is invested very heavily in open source as well as OpenStack, but we're very involved in the Open Daylight project for SDN, software-defined networking. Our initial SDN controller was used. It was provided to Open Daylight as the initial baseline for that technology in Open Daylight. So, and our SourceFire acquisition from a couple of years ago also leverages Snort, which is a pretty large intrusion protection system, open source. And now in terms of OpenStack, Cisco's been involved in the OpenStack community for a while, and we've really ramped up our involvement in the OpenStack community over the last several years. Today, we are providing our internal cloud services are being built on OpenStack. Our newer offerings are being built on OpenStack. We're starting to provide managed cloud solutions with OpenStack in partnership with companies like Red Hat, and in terms of integrated solutions where we provide validated designs with Red Hat OpenStack, and as well as building a lot of the openness into our core products via APIs, plugins, and drivers that, again, reach back into OpenStack and allow that interoperability and seamless integration. The biggest part of our OpenStack investment is probably in virtualized network functions, where our NFV products, network function virtualization, are all being built on OpenStack as well. And that's in conjunction with the service providers that we work with, who are also invested heavily in OpenStack services because it provides so much agility and reliability over top of the cloud service offerings. So we're certainly heavily invested in OpenStack, and there's several projects that we're deeply involved in to provide ongoing innovation in that area.
I appreciate that, and we certainly continue to hear a lot about just the increased capabilities and security of using software-defined networks and those kinds of functionalities. So I appreciate your experience on that. Let me throw another question out regarding the move to Agile Development. In our survey, we found, actually what surprised me, a significant number of agencies or respondents saying their agencies are either using the Agile approach, or still about 20% currently, but clearly 10% are undertaking a project and 22% were planning an Agile implementation. So if they're not there yet, they're trying to get there. Does that jive with what you're experiencing when you talk to government agencies? Kevin, let me throw that out your way first, and then I'll double back with Tim. Do you see that kind of commitment showing up in using Agile development?
Yes, absolutely. I think the biggest driver for digital transformation is the ability to deliver capabilities faster at the same level of performance, scale, security. So what we've seen is definitely a huge trend towards Agile, which is kind of baby step number one in the overall kind of process and methodology, and actually a lot of adoption through using platforms like OpenStack and our OpenShift paths, where they're really bringing DevOps and more of a combined DevOps strategy across their different parts of the organization. It's getting to a point where, as the cloud components become extremely large as from a presence standpoint, the ability and the need to have a much faster and agile approach to any sort of software development and any sort of infrastructure modernization is just an absolute requirement number one. So most government agencies today are actually using very sophisticated Agile and also moving towards a much more developer-focused, end-user, customer-focused DevOps approach, which obviously translates all the way down to the infrastructure level through process and the people that are needed to do that.
And Tim, from your perspective, how do these numbers jive with what you're experiencing?
Yeah, they do jive with what we're seeing as well. And from Cisco's perspective, we certainly see a lot more focus on the application and how it behaves on the infrastructure, in the network, and across the systems in the data center, and actually across the WAN. And we're seeing that movement to an application-centric focus with policies that are now, with the SDN paradigm in place, that centralized policy engine that allows us to provide that overlay of policies and down in through the infrastructure. But where we're seeing a lot of that more agile and development activity is in the API piece of it, where developers now are able to provide the custom orchestration that they need to automate their infrastructures. But most certainly they are becoming front and center. Those developers are becoming front and center in terms of that, and in terms of the need to build out these Mode 2 type applications, if you will, the Gartner Mode 2 type of applications that are meant to be for cloud native type applications. And certainly Cisco is heavily invested there as well, and building our applications the same way. So we're seeing our customers go in that direction more and more.
I appreciate that. Let's jump to one of the other findings in the study that had to do with some of the obstacles that we discovered, and I'm not sure they were a total surprise, but would appreciate your take on them. And that had to do with just the level of concerns about having the adequate staff as well as skills to implement. Is this partly because even as mature as OpenStack is, there's still a shortage of skilled folks, or are they also pretty expensive for government, so it's harder for them to bring them on staff? What would be your take on that? Kevin, let me throw it to you first.
Sure, absolutely. The number one point of any sort of open source of innovative approach is being ahead of the curve on both the technical and process perspective. So when you start coming to market with new open source projects and products, you need to really have a group of folks that are really dedicated towards driving that type of innovation in their own professional development, as well as also, kind of leaning on each other for, kind of use cases and pros and cons of different techniques. So much like a lot of new technology that comes to market, you see there is obviously a lag in skill sets as that market materializes. But what you're also seeing is that there's a lot of vendors out there that are all working together, building a really robust network of folks across the country that are, contributing to OpenStack, that are leveraging it in their data centers, that are working with folks all the way up the stack to the front end, that are really embracing these technologies. So, with much like any normal kind of curve on a new technology, there's always a lag. I think the government's done an awesome job as far as being able to really get out there and push the digital innovation process within both the agencies, but also, at the highest levels. That's really helping drive that agenda. I think there's other companies like Red Hat that are, involved heavily in mentoring-based approaches. That's a lot of what my personal team does. Is we'll go out and actually mentor system integrators, partners, the government employees on what are the best practices for adoption. So it's really our job as a community to be out there pushing innovation and enabling the knowledge that's required to be able to successfully adopt those new programs. And I also think, there's some unique things that we're doing even at the Red Hat side, where we just released our Red Hat Open Innovation Labs. That is a mentoring-based residency program for some of our government agencies and commercial entities that are able to go and work directly with some of our best of the best on specific projects or POCs or pilots, where we'll come in and do an actual residency with the end user to help them, speed up their delivery and their ability to gain skill sets internally. So I feel like it's a very natural evolution of the staff, but it's also a huge community of folks out there with very creative programs that are helping the government get up to speed as fast as possible.
And Tim, how are you seeing these set of obstacles? Similar for you?
Very similar, and I don't know if I could have said it any better than Kevin just did. I was going to start by saying for customers they should lean on the community, because the industry is very invested here in getting the skills out there, and I'll tell you, with the success of integrated solutions between companies like Cisco and Red Hat, that customers have less of an appetite to necessarily build it themselves to that level of detail. If they can buy an integrated system, if they can go out and buy their own car, why build it if you can buy it? So there's that kind of small step to take in terms of starting the development of those skill sets. But very similar to what Kevin said, Cisco has a DevNet community and again very involved. So the object is to get as much of our customer constituency educated and trained in these technologies as we can.
Yeah, Wyatt, this is Kevin. If I can also just jump in as well. The other things that you're seeing, Tim and I will talk about this a lot, is Red Hat and Cisco, we're working together to make it easier for the adoption of the technology. So through programs such as Cisco's Validated Designs, we bring to market the ability to take multiple components from multiple vendors under a certified platform to get them started faster than trying to put all the little pieces together themselves. You're also seeing a lot of the work being done outside of direct line to the government, but also in the vendor community for us to be able to increase adoption, make that a lot easier for all of the end users, and you're going to continue to see us invest in those efforts across the board.
I appreciate that. Bob, I'll bring you back in the conversation. Based on some of these findings, do you feel like, where do you feel NIST will go next in trying to help bring some additional resources to the market relative to OpenStack and the OpenStack communities? Any plans in the near future for some updated publications?
Yes, Wyatt, there is, but I don't have any specific publications dedicated around OpenStack. I mean, we're doing a lot of work now based on our requirements document that we put out, our roadmap, and I expect to see significant work coming out on some SLAs and some cloud metrics by the end of the year.
Well, very good. We'll look forward to those. I'll throw one last question to our guests, and that has to do with just the topic of security. As you'll know, that in one of our slides there that we showed that there was a fairly strong, or I'd say sizable belief that that OpenStack in general, pretty much had a sense that, or respondents at least had a sense that, OpenStack was as secure or more secure than proprietary cloud software. I'd be interested, doubling back with you, Kevin, on the topic of security. What do you see going on in the community to make sure that the necessary concerns about security are being kind of built into the software development ecosystem?
The programs that I mentioned before around us working with third-party vendors like Cisco under Validated Design really are helping us bring to market a much more robust and secure, proven methodology. And I think that's probably one of the best things that we can bring to market is our ability to work both obviously on the actual technical platform and the hardening of that, but more on the overall architecture and how all the components work together to ensure the right security protocols. We're also working with a lot of the cloud providers on FISMA levels and their cloud capacities. So I think by the vendor community really helping drive those security standards and adopting them in proven architectures, along with the actual development of the actual product, I think the combination of that is just a pretty powerful message for everyone.
Mm-hmm. And Tim, going back to your discussion about adopting OpenStack and open source technologies, what's been your experience regarding the question of, is this secure enough for our use, and how do we make sure it continues to be going forward?
Yeah, much of what Kevin said as well, in terms of the design methodologies and making sure that we are adhering to government standards and policies, but also it's a matter of also not so much the technology. Of course, that's important, but also the procedural aspects of it, the operational aspects of it, and running a cloud environment, and just making sure that configuration management and things like that are all in place to ensure that not only is the technology in place correctly, but that it's being maintained and managed appropriately as well.
I appreciate that. Well, any closing thoughts, any other reactions to the study? Kevin, just briefly, anything else that struck you relative to the general perceptions of costs, speed to deployment, et cetera? Anything else that struck you as unusual or encouraging?
No, it really aligns to where Red Hat feels is the market is today, and I believe that by continuing to work with our partners, with our customers, we're going to continue to evolve both the offerings of the actual technology, but also the solutions that are cross-cutting across many organizations. So overall, very, very strong feedback from that result, from the survey. But at the same time, it's exactly mirroring with where we see the market today.
Great. And Tim, any other thoughts or reactions or surprises in this latest research?
The biggest takeaway for me was the fact that open source and OpenStack in particular has got a lot of momentum behind it, and that's clearly indicated here. I will say that judging by the need to educate the customer base and continue to develop these solutions that can be validated and able to take to market and for customers to consume. I guess the one surprising aspect of this was in terms of the difficulty of execution. That's good to see that the customers that have OpenStack and that are implementing it, at least trying it out, are finding that it isn't as difficult as it may seem on the surface, and certainly I think we've got a pretty large ecosystem here around supporting it, and that's an indication of that.
I appreciate that. Well, I'm afraid that we're going to have to wrap it up there. I just want to say thanks very much to our guests today, beginning with Bob Bohn at NIST, Kevin Sherry at Red Hat, and Tim Silk at Cisco Systems. Really appreciate some of the insights and reactions that you provided for our audience today. And of course, I want to thank our audience for joining us today. Just a reminder, you can download a PDF copy of the entire slide presentation from today's program by clicking the file in the resource list widget on your console. And again, if you have colleagues who would benefit from some of the findings today, please consider sharing the link that came with your email registration and send that along. The program is free, and it will be available for the next 90 days via that link, and then later on at FedScoop and StateScoop. With that, I want to just wrap up by saying thank you on behalf of FedScoop and StateScoop and to all of our audience for tuning in today. Look for more of our coverage of cloud computing and OpenStack development and Agile development as well on our daily news sites and our daily Scoop newsletters. So with that, thank you very much. We'll see you soon.